Today, Spoon River College announced for the first time a woman will lead that institution. She is Shelley Barkley. Taylor Fleming sat down with her and the chair of the Board of Trustees to get a preview of what's next.
To choose the next president of Spoon River College, the search committee worked with a former president and a national search firm. Former President Keith Miller served as a consultant with firm ACCT. They started with 42 applicants, interviewed 8, brought the top 3 to campus, and ultimately narrowed it down to 1. The next president of Spoon River College, Shelley Barkley.
Throughout each of the levels, she was the top candidate, and I think it was a combination of her knowledge of Illinois and what was going on, her combination of academic leadership as well as workplace leadership. We know that both of those areas are important to us.
Barkley has over 15 years of experience in community college leadership, most recently serving as the Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs at John Wood Community College. She says she's passionate about serving students at rural colleges like Spoon River, helping them meet challenges like a lack of resources.
Reducing student barriers and procuring funding to offset costs for students in rural districts is very close to my heart, and I'm very passionate about the barriers around mental health, basic needs.
She wants to help the school's 4,000 students with non-academic needs, like housing and food insecurity, as well as transportation challenges. Barkley also hopes to be an advocate for rural colleges to government leaders. Pending final approval from the Board of Trustees, she will likely start her duties August 31st. In Canton, Taylor Fleming, 25 News.